Hello everyone, Reza here. In this video, we will learn how to export data from PowerApps to Excel. We will explore three different data sources: SharePoint, Dataverse, and PowerApps collections to export data to Excel efficiently and in a performant manner. So let's check this video out in action. First scenario, SharePoint data connected in your Power App. I have a large SharePoint list, a list that has more than 10,000 rows connected in my Power App. I've leveraged the modern table control to display the data. Even if I use a gallery, as long as my query to the SharePoint list is delegable, the gallery or the modern table control both will perform optimized loading of data, meaning as the user scrolls through the different records, it will start loading data in batches of 100. I have also added filters which allow the user to refine the data in the table control. Here I have a filter query that checks to see that if the text that I entered starts with the text in the title column. For example, if I search for conduct, it will list out all the data where the title begins with the text conduct. I also have a second filter here on the progress column. Progress blocked. So this is a combination of both the filters to give me the results. I can reset, so it will show all the data. I can also filter on a specific progress status. I've added this button here, Export to Excel. When the user clicks on this, it should export the data to an Excel file. Key point to note, it's a large SharePoint list. Currently, I have no filters applied. If I click Export to Excel, it should create an Excel file for me, and it should have all the data. That's more than 10,000 rows. How do we do this in an efficient and a performant manner? To do this, we will take the help of Power Automate. I'll go and create a new flow. I'll create my flow from blank. I'll give this flow a name. The trigger of my flow is PowerApps v2. Here, I will add an input of type text. This I will call as my query. This query is something that I will define dynamically from PowerApps and pass over to Power Automate. For example, give me all my data from my SharePoint list, or give me the data where the title begins with a specific text. So only the query is what I will pass over dynamically from PowerApps to Power Automate, and I will let Power Automate do the work of getting all the data from that large SharePoint list. To create an Excel file, I'll add a new step here, say create file, and pick the create file action from OneDrive for Business. Folder path, if I put a slash, it will put the file at the root of the user's OneDrive, the user who is running the Power App. If you want to store this in a specific folder, for example, I'll say data export slash. In this case, it will create the file in a folder called data export, and if that folder does not exist, it will create it. Next, I need to give the name of the file. My SharePoint list is tracking work progress information, so I'll call this file work progress data underscore. I'll try and create a unique name for the file by using an expression here. Expression will be format date time. I'll pick the current date and time which I will get with the function UTC now. And I will format this using formatter F, meaning put the full date and time. I'll say OK. I'm creating an Excel file. So I'll put the extension of the file, file content. I'll put an empty space. I'm simply trying to create a blank Excel file to begin with. Next, I'll use the action create table from Excel Online Business. This is where I'll create a table in that Excel file in which I will export all the data from my SharePoint list. My location, OneDrive for Business, document library, OneDrive, file will be the dynamic content ID from the create file action. Table range. Now at this point, you have to decide how many columns you want to create in the table that you're exporting. In my case, I want to export 6 columns of data. So I'll use the notation $A1, that's the first cell, to $F1, that's the cell number 6. I can give the table a name. I'll call it work progress table. I can give my column names. These are 6 column names that I would like to create in the Excel file. In this table, in these columns, I will export the data from my SharePoint list. So next step, I'll go and get items from SharePoint. Connect to my SharePoint site. Connect to my SharePoint list. Show advanced options. Filter query. This will be the query dynamic content. That's the input that I pass to the PowerApps trigger action. So filter query will be that query. Since my list is large, the get items action returns 100 records by default. I need more. The max I can set here is 5,000. My list has over 10,000 rows. How do I get more? Head over to the settings for this action, turn on pagination, and the maximum threshold limit that I can put here is 100K. I'll click done. This will get all the items from my SharePoint list. I would like to load all this data now in this newly created Excel table. Get items will return all the columns from my SharePoint list. I only want to select a few. So I'll use the data operation action, select. From dynamic content value coming from get items, map. I'll switch map to text mode, put an array, and in here, map it to the same columns that I defined in my create table action. Get the title of the item, then progress, then priority, and so on and so forth. Title will come from the title column. Progress is a choice column, so I'll pick progress value. Priority is also a choice column, priority value. Due date assigned to is a person type column. I'll pick the display name. And finally, department, which is a lookup column. I'll pick the value. Next step, I'll call the send an HTTP request action from the Office 365 users connector, where I can make Graph API calls to the Graph API endpoint me, which points to the user's OneDrive. So graph.microsoft.com, v1.0, me drive items, slash, I need to get the drive ID that I will directly get from the create table action by using the following expression: split actions of create table, inputs, parameters, file, go split it by dot and get the data at array index 1 slash workbook slash tables slash the name of the table that I created in Excel, which in my case is work progress table, slash rows. That's the Graph API endpoint to add rows to an Excel file that's in OneDrive in one go. This is a post method, and the body will be an object that includes a property called values, and values, so I can use an expression body of select. I would like to return a link back to PowerApp, which would be a link to the file. And one of the easiest ways for me to create that link is by using the create share link action in OneDrive for Business. File. This would be dynamic content ID from the create file action. The type of the link, I'll say view. Link scope, I'll say organization. This will give me the link that I would like to send back to my Power App. So here I'll use the action respond to a Power App or flow. I'll add an output of type text. I'll call this URL, and the value will be the dynamic content web URL coming from the create share link action. Now this completes my flow, but before saving this, creating an empty file and then a table is going to be very quick, but to get the items, go select the items, fire the Graph API call, this may take time, especially get items action, because it depends upon how large my list is. And I'm running pagination here. When PowerApps calls flow, flow has to respond within 2 minutes. Otherwise, it will give an error in PowerApp. So to avoid that, what we can do is, right before get items action, I'll add a parallel branch. And for now, I'll just add a compose action. The reason I added this action is to have an action in this branch, because then I can start moving actions from the left branch over to the right branch. So get items, select, send an HTTP request. This will load all the data. This can happen parallelly while I create the sharing link. Now, in order for me to move these, I'll first have to make sure that the respond action has no reference to create share link for now. So I'll remove this. I'll move create share link. I'll move the respond action. I'll connect web URL back. And this compose action, I'll delete. Flow will quickly respond back to PowerApps while Flow does the work of exporting all the data. This completes my flow. I'll click save. This will save the flow in Power Automate. Once the flow is saved, it will then connect that flow in my Power App. And this now is what I can call when the export to Excel button is clicked. So when this is clicked, I will call the flow, which is export SharePoint data to Excel. That was the name of my flow. I want to call its run method. I need to pass a parameter of type text. That's the query. For now, I don't want to pass any query, meaning get all the rows from that SharePoint list. Empty string. This will run the flow. If I put a dot, this is the parameter that flow will return back to PowerApps, which is URL. And this I would like to store in a variable called var URL. Share link URL of that Excel file. And this variable is what I would like to open for the user on click of another button that I will add in this container. So I'll go and add another button. The text for this I've set as open file. On select of this button, I'll use the function launch to launch that variable of mine, which has the URL of the Excel file. Let's give this a try. Export to Excel. My flow is being called. The button comes alive, open file. If I select this, it will open my Excel file that got created in my OneDrive. That's the user running the Power App. You can see all the data starting to load. My list is large, over 10,000 rows. All of them loaded in one go. Now this export to Excel experience, I would want it to also respect any filters that I apply in my Power App. Here I have a text filter. This is a text input control called txt title. And then I have a drop down control for my second filter, which is called drp progress. When export to Excel is clicked, first thing I'll do is I'll set that variable to blank. Then I would want to create a collection that holds my query information. This query is OData query that Power Automate uses to filter data in SharePoint in that get items action. So first thing, I'll clear a collection called call query. We'll use the formula if not is blank txt title dot value, meaning has the user entered some text in this title text box to filter the data. If yes, then go and collect in this collection called call query the filter condition that I will put in double quotes. I'll say starts with, my column in SharePoint is title. So title starts with the text in single quotes, and this text is the text coming from that text box. Two double quotes, two ampersands, and right in between txt title dot value. I'll close my collect function. I'll close my if condition, put a semicolon. And now if I click format text, this is what my first condition looks like. I can do the same for other controls that I'm leveraging for filtering. In this case, I have a drop-down control for progress. So once again, if not is blank, drop-down progress.selected.value. If this is not blank, then collect in that collection the query progress equal to, in single quotes, I need to put its value. And the value will come from my drop down control. Once again, two double quotes, two ampersands, drop down dot selected dot value, format text. So this collection will start loading the queries if the user has applied those filters. And here, when I'm calling my flow in the run method, here I'll make a change. I'll remove the empty string, and within it, I'll write a formula switch on count rows of my collection called call query. If the collection is empty, meaning the rows are 0, that means no filter is applied, pass an empty string. Else, go use the concat function on this collection to concatenate all the values with an AND condition, two spaces on both sides of AND. I'll close the concat function, close the switch function. Let's try this. Develop, export to Excel. The flow gets called. The link to the file is generated. Open file. And here is all the data, where the title begins with the text, develop. In my data source, around 1,000 records begin with that title. Let's reset. Progress. Completed. I have 5. Export. Open file. Click. It's generating the data. Here is the data where the status is completed. Let's try a combination. Title begins with new, progress completed, export to Excel. This time both those queries will be combined. Open file. Here is the data. And if no filters and I click export to Excel, this time it will export all the data because the query is empty. And here it has loaded all the data. This same concept I can also apply to Dataverse data that is connected in my Power App. This table has 1003 rows. I'll export to Excel. This will trigger the flow, gives me the link back. I open the file, and here is the exported data. And if I was to search, this is a full text search. So all the users where the full name contains the letters SAN. Let's export to Excel. Open the file. Here is that list. Same concept. I had one query here, which was my text box. If my collection has no rows, meaning no query, so go and get all the active records. I only have one filter, so if that's the case, go get that filter value. And finally, for scenarios where you have a collection is local memory in a Power App. Here's my button. When I select this, it exports to Excel. Click Open File. On Select, notice here, I'm calling a flow and I'm passing that entire collection data because Power App has that information. That information is going in JSON format and I'm including the binary data. What does my flow do? This is the one for exporting collection data. Collection data input will be text in my flow. I then typecast it to JSON using the JSON function. The next steps are similar. Create the Excel file, create the table, sharing link, send it back. And then here, I select my columns from that JSON output. get all those columns, put it in an array, and then fire my Graph API call to load all that information. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching.